Son of God enfold you with His Spirit and His love. Let Him fill your heart and satisfy your soul. Oh, let Him have the things that hold you, and His Spirit like a dove will descend upon your life and make you whole.
The world sort of had its own Pentecost moment this week, did it not? I'm not talking about the royal wedding, although that was pretty good, wasn't it? That preacher was full of the Spirit, I think. You could say that, quite honestly. No, I'm talking about this thing going around, this thing with how we hear languages, this thing going around the internet. Did you hear Laurel or Yanni? What did you hear? How many of you heard Yanni? I did. All right, you guys are good. What about Laurel? You need your hearing checked. Something's wrong with you. This is like the day of Pentecost, wasn't it? Everybody's hearing languages and they're, all that, and I don't know. It's pretty weird. We'll have to figure that out. I'm often confused. I'm really confused about this. Why does the internet keep asking me to confirm that I'm not a robot? What's that about? Every time I try to order something, the internet says, you got to answer this question. Are you a robot? And I say no. And then you have to check the little boxes there that if you see pictures of cars or street signs or something like that. I just don't get it. Is there a problem out there with robots taking over the computers? Has R2-D2 and C-3PO run amok? What's going on here? Does Rosie, the Jetsons robot maid, have too much time on her hands? Did Chappie get an Amazon account? And just what are these robots ordering over the internet? New circuit wires for their fingers? Oil cans for their joints? Light bulbs for their eyes? What are they doing? Now, I know, you're thinking, this guy's stupid. I know the reason why we have to say we're not a robot and we have to play this game with pictures. And it's something to do with something called bots. Now, bots, we're talking about an internet bot is a website robot. It's a software application that runs, I looked it up, automated tasks over the internet. And so that's the reason why we're asked whether or not we are a robot. It's to keep the bots away. I get that. I understand. The internet is trying to confirm that we are who we say we are. And that's exactly what we are doing today. We are confirming that you, the confirmation class of 2018, are not just a bunch of mindless robots that have been programmed to do certain things. Now, although today is the day that it's billed as the day that you will be confirmed, please know that your confirmation of your faith journey does not just happen on one particular Sunday during somewhere around the 8th grade of your school journey. You will spend your entire lives confirming your faith. Ask anybody, it is a daily, never-ending, perennial process. I like to think that today is just a bookmarker in that process. So think of your faith journey as a book. Just because you're being confirmed today does not mean that the bookmarker is at the end of the book. It's probably just now at the end of chapter 1. And we can make the case that our reading today from Acts chapter 2 marks the end of chapter 1 of the Christian religion. We often refer to the day of Pentecost as the birthday of the church. And it is also the story of the first confirmation class in Christian history. But now we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We need to back up. Because the story of our faith begins, like all of our stories begin, with a baptism. Specifically, Jesus' baptism. Jesus is baptized, and immediately he has his own Pentecost experience. He is filled with the Holy Spirit. And after that, he has to go somewhere. He immediately walks into the desert for 40 days. And so for all intents and purposes, this is his confirmation class. He is tested. He is tempted in a myriad of ways, including his own time of questioning. And of course, he passes with flying colors. After he is confirmed, he becomes the teacher, and he begins to gather his own students, those who would become the first unofficial confirmation class in Christian history. The length of their class was probably about 2 to 3 years, which is not unlike our own confirmation experience here at Immanuel. Although, I know your class is pretty tough, but I think theirs was really, really intensive. And it wasn't the safest class to belong to because their teacher, Jesus, was eventually executed. I don't think Tony Wright would have taken the job if execution had been a possible outcome. I really don't. But we are told, however, thank goodness, thank God, that Jesus rose from the dead, which creates a very exciting, teachable moment. It is the ultimate in a visual object lesson. And after his resurrection, he appears to his disciples for 40 days, of course, because everything happens on a 40-day or 40-year cycle in the Bible, before he ascends into heaven. But before his ascension, he tells them to wait in Jerusalem for the Holy Spirit. And they do. And about a week later, on the day of Pentecost, the confirmation of their faith finally arrives. Now, their class was only about twice the size of your class today. They had presumably 12 members, presumably all male. And of the original 12 members, they only had to make one change in their class at some point during their journey, and that was when Matthias took the place of Judas Iscariot. Judas, who betrayed Jesus, was never confirmed. But as the disciples are gathered together on that first confirmation Sunday, God sort of hits the reset button on the divine computer, and all heaven breaks loose. The Holy Spirit comes to visit without even knocking. And then we get this spectacular display of signs and wonders, the sound of a violent rushing wind, not unlike what we heard this morning and the last day or two with the thunderstorms and all that. They get the fiery tongues and the foreign languages, trying to figure out who said what. The spectacle of apparent drunkenness, Peter's successful debut, and 3,000 converts. It's a pretty good confirmation Sunday, right? We would love to be able to sit down at our computers and order some of that. After all, today is Pentecost. Some of us are dressed for the occasion with our fiery red shirts and dresses and ties. Now, we've got 6 new converts today, which ain't 3,000, but, who's counting, right? It's still a good day. But as we try to ponder this Pentecost extravaganza, the computer is asking us to do something. The computer is asking us to confirm that we are not robots. And I think deep down, this is what Pentecost is really all about. It is that one annual update on our calendar that asks us to be more than just a robot. It asks us to do more than just go through the motions, to be more than just methodical and mechanical. It asks us to be real human beings. For 2 years, you guys have waited, prayed, and studied, which is pretty much what the 12 members of the first confirmation class had to do. And like them, you have been told to go to your own little room and sort of wait. That's the fireside room across the street. And wait and pray and study in anticipation of this big moment. 2 years of waiting, praying, and studying just to show yourselves in the world that no, you're not robots. You are faith-seeking, inquisitive, curious human beings who are not inclined, because I know you guys, you are not inclined to just do or believe what you are programmed to do or believe. And now you are ready for all heaven to break loose. I'm sorry to say that we can't guarantee that you will experience all the bells and whistles of that first Pentecost Sunday. You might not hear the sound of the rush of a violent wind, and you might not have fiery tongues resting upon your shoulders, but make no mistake, today is your Pentecost. Today is the day that the Holy Spirit seeks you out and gives you the ability to speak the language of faith. And I can already tell that there is nothing robotic about any of you. So enjoy this moment. Cherish it. But remember, this is not a graduation. This is not the last chapter in your book. This is just the beginning.